What's up YouTube, it's Saiyan here coming at you with a little bit of a card discussion here. I would like to clarify all the different spawn power cards, card types that are in the game. So just to keep it short and sweet, let's get right into it and see what kind of different cards we have in this game in particular. Okay, so starting with the character cards, which do the main battling, we have three different factions. We got basically the forces of light, the forces of darkness, so the heaven and hell, and in between, earthly forces and beyond. These are the three factions that we have in this game, spawn power cards. Um, and basically, according to the rules, there are no restrictions how you build your deck in terms of mixing and matching all the different factions. But if you want to spice up gameplay a little bit, you can of course decide to build a Forces of Darkness deck where you might splash in a couple of heroes from Earthly Forces, and vice versa, build a deck with Forces of Light and splash in a few guys from Earthly Forces and beyond, and then do like very much similar to the old Star Wars CCG that was out in the sort of mid 90s to early 2000s, where you have a faction of evil or dark and a faction of light. Type of thing. The reason why I say you should probably try and splash some of the Earthly Forces and Beyond heroes in there, because there's a load of these guys in the play that were printed amongst the 190 cards that this set has seen. There aren't too many Forces of Darkness cards, and there aren't too many Forces of Light cards out, so if you want to build like a mono deck, it will be quite difficult. But because you have the affiliations down here, as you can see, just there, some cards have affiliations. There is something else about that this E represents there at the bottom, which I'm going to get to in a minute. For example, Angela for Forces of Light has an affiliation with Spawn, which allows you to, do some additional tips, like some additional tricks when you play some of your enhancement cards into play. There isn't a hell of a lot into it, but it's still nice if you want to stay on theme to sort of approach the deck building from that point of view. Another thing is about the characters is that every turn you take, you can play one of these guys. Only one character can be played at every single turn. That's the one of the first phases in the game. Oh, gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but I'm gonna get to it in a second. It is called the I think it's called Call to Action. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is called Call to Action. Yes, it is called the Call to Action phase, which is your third phase. So you can only play one of the characters each turn, which obviously puts some restrictions into what the board state is going to be like. What this E represents there, that as well as being able to only play one character per turn, you can also only play one enhancement per turn. These have to be put down into your armory before you play them. Again, you do this during your call to action phase. But if you reveal a Twitch, for example, which has this E there, that allows you to play an additional enhancement in your turn. And that is pretty good because normally these characters that have the E symbol there, they're usually lower power and lower stats wise than what the normal cards would be without that E. But you can almost sacrifice your character play to be able to bring another enhancement into the game, because these enhancements are normally very, very powerful and they can turn the tide of the game. So this is it for now on the three different character types. You got the Forces of Light, Earthly Forces, and Forces of Darkness. Definitely something to bear in mind when you're building your deck. Then we have the enhancement cards, and again we have three different types here. We have our instantaneous enhancements, and you can tell those by looking at this little star there just next to the enhancement. We have our linked enhancements. We can tell that because you got like almost two chains linking together sort of symbol up here. And you have your ultra enhancements. So the difference between these cards is the fact that ultra enhancements come into play and they stay in play. They're almost like enchantments in Magic the Gathering if you play that game. Your linked enhancements would be sort of like your auras in Magic the Gathering, so when they come into play you attach them to your character. But if your character is KO'd, leaves play, the linked enhancements go with it to your discard. And then finally you have your instantaneous enhancements. These enhancements can be played at any point in time during the play. In contrast to these two can only be played in the call to phase action, which is your third phase in a turn. The instant enhancements or instantaneous enhancements, they could be played at any time, so you can disrupt whilst you're battling, you can beef up your characters and whatnot, but again, you can only play one instant enhancement per turn. So you have to bear that in mind. But we got these three different types of enhancements, and they all do different functions as well. One more thing that I need to point out, which you find on ultra enhancements and linked enhancements as well, you have this triangle down at the bottom. That normally means how long these cards stay in play. D means they stay in play for as long as they are removed from the game. But we have some enhancements which come with a number. So if we take Elemental Fire as an example, there is a 3 there at that triangle, which represents that Elemental Fire, it's an ultra enhancement, so you don't have to attach it to any of your characters. It will just stay in play for 3 turns. You should use counters or some sort of, maybe a dice to count back the turns. And if there are, if that counter hits 0, it obviously leaves play. So these are the 3 different enhancement cards, and then we have a final card that we need to discuss, which is the mission cards. Now, mission cards are a little bit of a fringe mechanic in this game. You don't need them for all the types of gameplay. There are 2 gameplays that you can play with Star Wars Spawn power cards. You can either do a Battle Royale, which basically you're using the 6 aforementioned cards, or you can play missions as well. If you decide to play missions, you have to put mission cards into your deck. When mission cards are played, basically what you need to do is you need to look at the requirements that are on the card. Sometimes you got no restrictions, some like this particular one, Abduct Wanda. One of the characters chosen by a Forces of Earth player must be Wanda Blake. You need a minimum of 2 characters. In fact, you need exactly 2 characters to complete this mission. One of them has to be Wanda, and the other one has to be obviously the person who abducts Wanda, and you get a value of 1. And how these missions are kind of played out, it's a very different gameplay, again, as I mentioned, compared to Battle Royale. But basically you have to get to a certain level of value that basically wins you the game. But there is also an element of battling and all that incorporated in there. But when I get to the rules, I'm going to do a separate video on how to play the missions and what the hell to do with these cards. So I hope this video has helped you a little bit to understand this slightly outdated type of gameplay, but I think, for 1995 it was very sort of fresh to bring something different than Magic the Gathering into the world of cards, because obviously Magic was out by then. It was a big thing by 1995. Clearly the guys with Spawn, they've tried something completely different. Yes, yeah, of course. You could argue that when you look at the stats of the warriors and all that kind of stuff, it's a bit confusing. But anyway, I'm gonna do a separate video on that as well to share it with you guys and help you understand that a little bit more. So for now, peace out, YouTube. Saiyan signing out.